I was told today, and Tony told me that there are literally 300 of these talks on Facebook and YouTube. And I mean, I'm telling you, and I hope people go there and use them and listen to them, because most of them are, they go pretty deeply into the work that we practice. So I hope people go and listen to them. You can tell friends about them if they're interested in this work. And it's like kind of fishing a little bit. You never know who's going to come along and who it's going to affect very deeply, and whose life it might change if they truly, do this work in depth and with the intent of having a spiritual life. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask?
Stuart?
Yes.
Have you considered having your talks transcribed and then posted?
Matt, I've written a lot of books, not a lot, but at least two books of my talks having been transcribed. One of them is partially transcription and partially memoir, called Navigating the River of Time. And yeah, I mean, that can be done. But, we live in a world today where people don't read. I mean, it's very hard to get people to read things. And videos really have a deeper impact. I mean, yes, if somebody wants to do it, I'm certainly not going to stop them. And then, they could be edited and published as a book. Not a problem, I mean, it certainly can be done if somebody wants to do that. I'm not going to do it because I just don't have time to do it.
Well, I've used transcription services. I wasn't talking about somebody in the group literally transcribing everything, but I've used transcription services where they take the recording and they have people who are incredibly fast at input. And if you like, I will investigate that.
Okay.
One reason why I bring it up is probably everyone in this group has from time to time looked at a compilation of spiritual aphorisms or teachings. And I have found with books like that, this is just my own personal experience, I tend not to start at page 1 and just read my way through to page 356. I like to just open the book up, and 99 times out of 100, I just land on something that just happens to be completely relevant to whatever.
Well, you just defined my books, Matt. That's what they're like. I wrote a book called Moving On, Finding Happiness in a Changed World. And it's like 108, maybe more, a couple of hundred pages of aphorisms. And they're all original. And Chris is here today. She has them by her bed. She reads them all the time, And, I like books like that. I think books like that are very inspiring. And if you want to find somebody that can transcribe them, fine. I remember I had a friend of mine I wrote a book about Rudy, about the last half hour of Rudy's life. And this friend of mine read it, and he called me up and said, I have, transcriptions of all Rudy's tapes. He said it's like, endless, 1,500 tapes, and he said, and you're the only one in the world who could edit these and really turn them into a book. And I told him, I just don't have the time to do that. I mean, that's like a 10-year job, to edit a book like that. And I told him, I apologize, but I can't do that kind of thing. I don't have the time. They said, you simply couldn't even pay me enough money to do that. It's just too big a job.
Yeah.
So there's not only the transcriptions, there's the editing, it's making it literary, because the spoken word, unless it's in dialogue in fiction, and the written word, it's a little bit different. They have to be edited. But find out. I'll be happy to back that and see if we can do something.
And please know that I was in no way attempting to suppress sales of your books. I was just thinking about another delivery form for a lot of great content. I mean, I know in my own case, just having been around now for 4 or 5 weeks, I'll remember, oh, Stuart said something about this 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks, and it's impossible. You know what I mean? It's just easier to go to a different type of source material than to listen to 20.
But Matt, let's discuss this in my email or something like because there might be other questions that people have to ask now. So I don't want to cut you off, but it might be good. We can go through this via email. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Oh, Stuart,
Yes.
yesterday you spoke about many things, but one of the things was suffering consciously. Does that not only involve detaching emotionally, but also feeling, experiencing some joy behind the suffering?
No, Tony, what it's about is using this meditation practice to break yourself down and getting strong enough to transform the suffering into a spiritual life. That is conscious suffering. Knowing how to use the pain, the difficulty in your life through transforming it. How do you transform it? You got to be able to turn it into Shakti, into energy that nurtures you instead of energy that depresses you and makes you unhappy. And, you want to go out and hurt somebody, So when I talk about suffering consciously, at least this is how I've done it in my life. Every time I went through some horrendous situation, man, did I get centered, and I would have meditation classes, and I would go so deep in myself, and I would ask so deep in myself for help to transform this pain, this difficulty into my spiritual life, into an open heart, and mostly into forgiveness of people that were bringing this nonsense into my life. That's what I mean by suffering consciously. And using it as a reminder that you have to grow, then using the meditation exercise to build a system inside that's strong enough to transform the suffering into, hey, this is helping me to grow. I shouldn't get upset about this. I should really take this deep inside and allow it to help me continue to grow inside my life. Then you suffer consciously. You are using it to get to God instead of allowing yourself to be destroyed by it. And when I talk about suffering consciously, this is what I mean. And we have a meditation exercise that can be used to do this. And, the angst, the anger, the Truman Strom and all that, whatever that's called, that goes on inside people, it can be transformed. I mean, I remember once I was sitting in Pat Fay was with me, we were sitting on Lincoln Road with the guy who's a very famous orchestra conductor, and I'll never forget when he said to me, Stuart, there's got to be something higher than music. It just blew my socks away. I never thought I'd ever in a million years hear anything come out of his mouth like that. And he said to me, all the drama, the drum and strum, all that soap opera and drama, and especially in 19th century music, he said, there's got to be something higher than that. And I said, there is something higher than that, and the ability to fine tune one's instrument. Our instrument is the chakra system. So that instead of it coming out like, a scratch, like an orchestra playing with untuned instruments, it comes out as love, as harmony, as balance, as spirit, as compassion, because we have built a system inside that can transform all of that madness into a spiritual life. This is suffering consciously. Now, everyone's going to suffer. You can't escape it. If you're alive on this planet, it's going to happen. How do you use it consciously? Now, that's what I'm talking about. Fine-tuning your instrument inside. you know, the chakra system, being capable of staying grounded inside, centered inside yourself, and then opening the heart. And all of that suffering will dissolve into Shakti, energy that will nurture you and help you to grow. That's conscious suffering. Not, you know, not feeling emotion, all the stuff that people talk about. It has nothing to do with it. It's using that energy as a step in a ladder to get to God. And, you know, trust me, suffering, everybody has it. I once wrote in one of my books, suffering is the perfect democracy. Everybody has it in one form or another. Very few people use it to build a spiritual life. And when Rudy talked about you either suffer like a schmuck or you suffer consciously, this is what he's talking about. You learn how to use it to grow instead of allowing it to run over you, you know? You know, it's like some huge truck coming at you that just smashes you into the ground, you know? And this is an amazing way to live because then we become a master of ourselves. And we don't let all of that bullshit determine how we live our day. And this is not an intellectual thing. This is really experiential. This is knowing how, developing the craft of inner work so that you can use that craft to transform anything that happens to you into a spiritual life. Because whatever it happens to us, it's God's teachings. And some we like, some we don't like. The universe doesn't care. It teaches you the way, what you have to learn at any particular moment in your life. And then it depends upon the ability to use it consciously. I hope that's clear. I don't know how to make it clearer.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? And this way we grow up. We don't spend our lives being an erotic 7-year-old. Why me? Why am I going through this? All right, I'm going through it, but I know how to use it consciously. I know how this experience can get me closer to my spiritual enlightenment. I know exactly what to do. That's a sign of real maturity inside. You know, and then you don't bludgeon other people with all your unhappiness. You know? I mean, you really don't. Does anyone else have, and just to finish this, look, 99.8% of this world does not live terribly conscious in a conscious way. And people, especially relatives and close people to us, they're going to bring us all this crap. But if you have the capacity to refine and build your chakra system, you can deal with it. It doesn't throw you. It doesn't get you crazy. You can transform it inside yourself. Just more compost, you know, that you can use to nurture your organic internal garden. And other people's, you know, tension does not intimidate us anymore. We're capable of dealing with it. We have that balance and strength in ourselves that can deal with other people's tension. And God knows there's an endless amount of it in the world, you know, endless amount, not only our own tension, but other people's tension that we have to deal with every day, you know?
Stuart, isn't it normal to also feel, I mean, even if it's not our personal pain, but if you're feeling pain from what's going on in the world, the animals, people starving, animals starving, all this destruction that's being done in our planet. And
Yes, it's
the
very,
the Buddhists say, if as long as there are other people suffering, I suffer.
well, yeah, I agree. But if people would do inner work, not only what I teach, but inner work, if they would work on themselves, then all of this can find a resolution. But mostly it's just complaining about it. That's why it always exists. If, you know, how many people really do inner work? How many people really work on themselves? Everybody complains about all their problems, and you just, you know, go to the media and in 5 seconds, you know, refugee camps in Yemen and, you know, Afghanistan. I mean, people killing each other all over the world. It's horrible what goes on in this world. But it also reflects the internal battle that goes on in every human being. And if people would just make the effort to change inside themselves, this battle would change. Nobody would starve. There would be compassion, love for every human being. There wouldn't be all this bullshit that goes on in the American Congress between these idiots, you know, that are there, you know, trying to get their position and never really think about human beings living in the world, going through all the stuff they go through. It would change. But, you know, look, I once had a talk with God, you know, I really said, look, you know, I can work on me. I can try and do everything possible to help the people that come and study with what I teach. I cannot save this world. That's your problem. And, you know, it's a big problem. And there's reincarnation, and there's, people have 1,000 lifetimes to learn how to finally become conscious human beings. And yes, all of this goes on, and a lot of it is painful. But it would change if people change inside themselves. When you open your heart, you give compassion, you give love, you give, you know, you really care about other human beings. There's kindness, you know. But a person needs training to just learn how to do that. And most people's worlds are so self-centered that that training doesn't exist. And then you have 8 billion isolated people struggling with each with their own reality, trying to fit everybody else into their reality. So honestly, the best I can do is, you know, serve God and serve the people who come into my life that want to learn what I have to teach. It's the best I can do. And trust me, we've tried it. Chris and I, we had in Kathmandu, we opened a safe house for young kids that were potentially going to be trafficked into sexual slavery in India. We ran a place like that for 4 years. It was the first place of its sort ever opened in Nepal. And we ran it, and God knows the stories and people we came across, right, Chris? Tell her, you know, it was extraordinary. And finally I said, okay, we, you know, for reasons, we gave it to a group in Kathmandu, you know, that called REST. It was a friend of ours, a doctor who was running that organization. And then she called us up when I published my book, Little Sister. She read it. First, she was so angry I wrote this book. And then she read it and she said, Stuart, I cried through the whole book. It was so profound. It affected me so deeply. And she said, you know, because you started the Bahini Foundation, it saved the lives of 10,000 young girls. And I never heard that before. And that was extraordinary by starting that organization. And then being able to say, okay, a Nepalese doctor could run this better than we can. And to give it over to her without, it's my organization, it's my that, you know, here, Aruna, here's Bahini, you know, you will do a better job than even we were doing with it. And she did. God bless her. I mean, look, I spent my whole life doing kind of social service, teaching in prisons. I spent 5 years in Texas teaching in prisons. I used to go out to Oregon teaching in Coffee Creek prison, for women. And I've done this trying to bring this consciousness to people who are living in very difficult circumstances. And I'll never forget, especially in Texas, I'll never forget it. It was a kind of a co-ed prison of people that had like a year to do. It was a federal prison, and all of the men were like muscle bound. All day long, they would just lift weights, these guys. And I'll remember at the end of the class, 20 of them would get on a line to come up and hug me and thank me. And some of them had tears in their, and these were mafia guys, these were murderers. I mean, it was the biggest drug, one guy was boasting to me, he was the biggest drug smuggler in the world when he got busted. I mean, he's the kind of people I had in my class. Came up hugging me, thanking me. And, yes, when you do inner work, the compassion spills over and you honestly want to do good in the world. I remember this guy, Charlie, I'll never forget him. The guy was, probably about 5'10". He looked like Sylvester Stallone, muscle bound guy. And, we were building a house in Denton, it was the ashram there. We were building this really beautiful house we built there. And every single Sunday, I would go to Fort Worth and I would, with a van, and I would bring anywhere between 6 and 12 of the inmates with me to spend the day at my house in Denton. Every single Sunday I would do this. And the people in the ashram, there were 4 or 5 people working on building this. And I look across the lawn of the house and there's this guy, Charlie. Never forget him. This guy was a bank robber. He used to run a string of brothels in Houston. I mean, an unbelievable character. And he was a quiet guy, And he's walking towards the house and he has a carpenter's apron on. And I go up to him and I say, Charlie, you come out here for one day, you don't have to do this. He said, Stuart, I'm not a man of many words, but I know something about carpentry. And going and helping you is a way of me saying, thanks for what you have done for my life. How could you forget anything like that? Ever. Ever. And there must have been 100 experiences with those people that I had that became indelibly imprinted inside me. It's why I do what I do today, I don't run around to prisons anymore. I remember, I'll never forget it. After I stopped the program at the prison in Fort Worth, I'm sitting in my antique store. I used to have an antique store there. And this chaplain walks in from the prison. And I said, Chaplain Ames, what are you doing here? He said, Stuart, I don't know what you do. I don't know if I even believe in what you do. I never saw anything work like it in the prison. And I came out here to beg you to please come back and continue your program. I mean, I continued, I had my students go in. I thought it would be a good way for them to get education in the teaching of meditation. I mean, it brought tears to my eyes, The guy said, I don't even know if I believe in what you do, but I never saw anything work like it in the prison. Please come back and do this and continue this program. All of this is an expression of Rudy's work. When Rudy came to Texas, I would take him to the prisons. There were 2 of them. And he loved it. He just loved going there and, teaching the people that were there. I mean, it was incredible. He just really, are we going to the prison? I said, yes, it's on the agenda. Anyway, that is an outgrowth of being a servant of higher energy on the earth. And you don't even look for these programs. They just come. They send them to you. I mean, Chris, I remember she used to go to Rikers Island and teach.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about a hellhole on the planet Earth. It's Rikers Island. You know, I remember I went out there a few times and whoa, I mean, these were some tough guys. They're really tough guys. And they were like children there, you know, like baby, you know, lapping up the energy. As Chris talked, I went into my best Bronxese when I talked to them. So I'm just sharing all this with you just to let you know that when you do inner work, you grow, you fine tune your instrument. The most unbelievable situations are sent your way, and then it's what you do with them. And I know every one of those people in the prisons, they all were my teacher. I grew so much because I did that. So much in my life. Does anyone else have a question you would like to ask? But just to finish, will I be able to save the world? No. Can't do it. I mean, they have a thing in the Jewish religion. If you save one life in your lifetime, the gates of heaven open to you. And you got to start with the one life that we all have to live, and that's our own. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Stuart, Rudy spoke about living above the agony. He said you have to live above the agony in one of the lectures. And I think you talked a little bit, but there might be a slight different thing you would say. So that was coming up to ask you about.
No, I said it. The agony is going to come. We all go through it. But when you know how to transform it into Shakti, into energy, into chi, into an open heart, you are living above the agony. And that is the craft of this meditation that we practice. You will live above the agony. You'll also shorten the span of the agony. It won't go on for 6 months. You know, sometimes go on for 10 minutes and you can turn it around. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? I hope this is clear to all of you. And, you know, if there are no more questions, we'll have meditation on Sunday. And God bless you all. And I say it after every class. You might be tired of me saying it, but you're all here. You're my teachers. You demand of me to work in a depth that I don't even demand of myself, or I do demand of myself, or I wouldn't be here. You know, but it's a joy, and in all humility, I'm so grateful to be here doing this. You know, to be able to transmit this incredible stuff I've learned in my life. And hopefully it will affect the lives of people that attend the class. They will grow, they will connect with God in a profound and deep way. And then their karma will take them into a multitude of experiences, you know, that they can share with other people and help other people to grow in their life. So God bless you all. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing everyone on Sunday. Have a good evening. And
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart. God bless.
Stuart.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Mm.